All right, welcome to another episode of NFL Outdated Cover 2 series. This episode, we were talking about the New York Giants, and I am joined by Carl from Giants Zone Podcast. How's it going?
Hey, Andy, how are you, buddy? Glad to be on tonight.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's an interesting week. Lots of free agency going to be coming up, but it's definitely helpful to talk about what we think might happen, and then also
Yeah.
kind of review of some of the things that have happened. And obviously, a lot has happened with the Giants so far. And biggest thing is with the new coaching staff and in front office. First of all, let's just kind of go into the coaching staff and with Brian Daboll. What are you expecting from year one? And then even was he the hire that you had hoped the Giants would make?
He was, we as Giant fans, a lot of diehard Giant fans, his name was out there even before the season ended.
Mm-hmm.
And we had on one of our previous podcasts, we had Bobby Thompson, who's a reporter for the NFL. And we asked him what he thought about the hire of Shane and Daboll. And he said he thought the Giants actually won the offseason with those two hires. So we're really happy right now with the new leadership and the new direction. After all the losing that's gone on, it's good to have hope. So we've got a real good feeling. There's a lot of positive energy right now around the team.
Yeah, and not to throw any water on that fire, but obviously you look at kind of the history of some of the moves they've made in the last few years, and just replacing coach after coach after coach. What kind of gives you hope that maybe this is kind of the right match to just kind of to move the Giants forward and onward and upward?
There's a lot. I mean, if you watch their press conferences, they said a lot of the right things. They've already, both Shane and Daboll in their press conferences came out and said, Daniel Jones is going to be our quarterback. And I know we're going to get into that later. But what we really liked, me personally, but I know from tweeting with a lot of Giant fans and from our podcasts, there was a lot of the things he said. We're going to build the system around the quarterback as opposed to just throwing him in and this is our offense and see what you got. And the owner, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but our owner, John Mara, came out and said, we have failed this quarterback. We failed to protect him. We failed to build around him. And that's all going to change this year, starting this year. So, and look at the success they've had with Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to argue that. That offense is high octane, and we're not there yet. But if he can get us there, we're in great shape. We'll be happy.
And is it a little weird that basically Buffalo people are kind of moving to the Giants? Was that a little kind of weird when you kind of sit back and look at that?
I guess it's to be expected in some degree.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of familiarity there. They all know each other and they've had success together. So naturally they want to follow each other. So I don't think it's that big of an issue. Look, again, we were 4-13 last year. So, I mean, what more can I say? They made the playoffs. They went to overtime with Kansas City. Probably should have won the game.
Mm-hmm.
I'd sign up for that success right now. So, I think it's great. Bring them all.
Now, I do have to ask, it was kind of a weird situation. What were your thoughts kind of with the whole Brian Flores interview in that situation? I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, but what were your thoughts? I mean, if he would have been the coach, or I mean, obviously Brian Daboll maybe was the target all along there.
Right. Me personally, and I'll answer from my personal perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted Daboll. Look, I was from the outside looking in on what Flores did in Miami. I respected him as a coach, and I still do. You hear rumors about what took place and who didn't get along, and I understand all that, but you know what? That's not exactly a great roster. And he still did pretty, he made them, if nothing else, respectable. And they competed. So, I respect him for that, but me personally, I wanted Dable for no other reason than just seeing what he built in Buffalo and the systems and all the great things the players had to say about him and the front office and everybody around that knew on the inner workings of it, rave reviews about them.
Absolutely. And kind of, sorry, go ahead.
So, I mean, you hear all that, you look at the results, and again, Andy, 4-13. So, there's nowhere to go but up from there.
Yeah, and when you think about going up, obviously the quarterback is the most important position. As a Bears fan, I know that, no other, obviously many others. But, it's interesting. The organization, Mara came out and said that they've messed the situation up with Daniel Jones. I mean, what do you make of Daniel Jones going into this year and maybe even the possibility of adding Mitchell Trubisky to this?
Look, I understand the Mitchell Trubisky talk. I do. And everybody in Buffalo raves about him. Great teammate, great person, never complained about what happened in Chicago. And I'm sure you know that better than I do, and you could speak to that. I don't think I'm not crazy about it. Number one, I don't think we can accurately grade Daniel Jones. He has not had an offensive line. He's had 3 coaches. The systems it came out just 2 weeks ago that midway through the season last year, half the offense was still learning Jason Garrett's offense. So, you take all that into consideration. Here's what I think, okay? Just me personally. They're committed to Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones makes sense financially, okay? Look, it's going to be a 1-year trial for Daniel Jones. They're going to build around. They're going to rebuild the offensive line, whether they do it through the draft, free agency, and a combination of both. It's a 1-year evaluation. You see what you got. All right, if he could stay healthy, you build around him. See if he could be the guy that could lead you through this rebuild. If he can, you sign him. If not, you draft a quarterback. Next year's draft is supposed to be quarterback deep. Roll the dice.
Yeah, and when you think about playing quarterback, it's different playing quarterback in New York, isn't it?
A lot of pressure. You are scrutinized for every move you make, everything you say. The pressure in New York. Look, Chicago's a big city, and I've been to Chicago many, many times, and I'm sure there's pressure there, but it's not New York.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. It's you got the weight of the world on your shoulders.
See, and it's interesting. I did get a chance to go to the 2019 Bears training camp, obviously before they moved to their new location. And Mitchell Trubisky, fantastic guy. He was signing autographs the longest. Hanging out with kids and just a all around good guy. But you just don't know, does he have what it takes to be starting? The guy. And he wasn't able to do that in Chicago. A lot of that was on coaching as well. The coaches didn't want him. If they end up bringing him in, maybe he has a little more confidence because they actually chose him.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
How much better do you think he is than Daniel Jones based on what you've seen? How big of an upgrade is it really?
I'd say it's probably about the same. They're pretty much, you've seen that meme of the Spider-Mans pointing at each other. I'd say it's pretty much the same.
Right.
And yeah.
But the only difference, if they're going to do it, the only reason why I would be in favor of it, look at the backups we had last year. Mike Glennon and Jake Fromm. You know what? They could have paid me less and probably gotten the same production.
Yeah, I could have told you about that, Mike Glennon. I mean, we had that experiment with the Bears. So
I mean, look, I'm all about upgrading the position as far as the quarterback too. I don't know if that's the right move. I don't know. I mean, there's other names out there. there's a lot of free agent quarterbacks now. I don't know. I'm on the fence with it. It's the best I could say.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, you look at where the Giants are, and you're not looking for 2022 for them to really contend for playoffs. And so
Right.
I like, that you want to see what you have in Daniel Jones, and it'll be interesting. It makes sense on one front that Mitchell Trubisky would get signed because of the connection to Dable, but on the other hand, why would you want to spend money on a quarterback, a possibly backup quarterback, when, I mean, you say everything says that you're all in on Daniel Jones, right?
Right. And, to your point, they also signed from Buffalo Davis Webb. Now,
Mm-hmm.
Davis Webb is not going to challenge Daniel Jones for the starting job. So Davis Webb has come out and said he eventually wants to be an NFL coach. Davis Webb is on this roster to help Daniel Jones transition into this system. So would I want to pay the money that Trubisky's going to probably want, where I could spend that money more wisely, get a decent backup somewhere else, and yet plug some more holes in other areas that are bigger need?
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
Daniel Jones is, as they say, the guy.
Yeah, and even if he's not, the guy this year, at least then you can find that out for sure, and then move on next year. In this year is obviously the transition year.
Right, exactly. Look, you're in the same position we're in. 2022 is not going to be about wins and losses. 2022 is going to be about getting the new systems in place. A lot of player evaluations. Seeing who's part of the long-term plan and who's not. So anybody expecting 8 wins, 9, 10 wins, they're going to be disappointed. I'll take 6 wins and a competitive team and call that a good start.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of players and whether they are or not part of the future plan, Saquon Barkley, he's been rumored to be traded.
Right.
Which side are you on? Are you on the keep him side or the trade him side?
I liked the pick of Saquon Barkley. I loved it. I wanted it. Okay. And I will go on record as saying that. Saquon Barkley coming out of college was an elite talent, and we all had delusions of grandeur. I think the injuries have taken some tread off the tires. All right. And injuries happen. They just do. But here's what you've got to look at. Okay. So he's in the last year of his contract. He capped $7.2 million against the cap this year. That's his number for the year. Okay. Right now, if they trade him, you're hearing anywhere between a third and a fifth. The issue is here. Let's say they keep him, and okay, great. And he goes crazy and has a good year. Let's say they build the offensive line and it all clicks. I'm not saying Super Bowl, but let's just say Barkley has a good year. Okay. Barkley's going to want big money.
Mm-hmm.
With the situation we're in, okay, and our salary cap issues, can we afford to pay him all that money beyond? It's not smart. If they can get picks, here's my personal feeling. My personal feeling is I think there's a very strong likelihood he gets traded. I do. Mm-hmm. There's reports out there that teams are saying their asking price is too high. I'll believe it when I see it. Between now and the draft, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of rumors about it. If he gets dealt, I wouldn't be surprised if it's during the draft he gets dealt. Look, I love Barkley. I'd love to see him do well, but he's going to want big money, and I just don't know if it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at where the Giants are, and when you look at running backs, their shelf life, I mean, and his injuries, he may not be the long-term answer anyway on a contending Giants team anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was looking here, Andy. In 2019, he had the ankle sprain. He missed 3 games. look, 2020, he hurt the knee against the Bears week 2, lost for the season. Last year, he hurt his ankle in week 5, and we lost him for 4 games. And you could see now he doesn't have that burst anymore. He doesn't have that speed anymore. One thing I don't think anybody's looking at is what have the injuries done to him up here? Mm-hmm. How much does he trust the body? How much does he trust the blocking in front of him? And someone pointed that out to me, and I thought that was so profound. And when she said it to me, and it was a woman, believe it or not, on Twitter, and when she pointed it out to me, I actually took a step back and I said, wow, that's huge. It's huge. So if you're going to put a gun to my head, do I think he's here or not next year? I think there's a strong likelihood he gets dealt. But if he is, I'll support him.
Absolutely. And that is an interesting point about kind of what's, in their brain about stuff. I mean, I think Mark Sanchez had come up, talked about his shoulder injury and just, the next, getting back on the field and just not wanting to re-injure it. And so we do forget that, they are people and there are real worries about re-injury.
Right. Exactly right. Exactly right. So, I would not be surprised if he's not on the roster.
What about
the package too?
Yeah.
Right now in a rebuild, you want to have as many picks as possible. So let's say they get maybe a 3 and a 5. Do they make the move? I don't know what's in their head. I don't know what their expectation is. But they didn't draft him. This new leadership did not draft him. They made the playoffs. They damn near made it to a Super Bowl with Singletary and Zach Moss. They could do it without Saquon Barkley. And again, I don't want anybody to come at me and say, well, you like Saquon. I do like Saquon Barkley. I'm just trying to look at this as a big picture.
Well, yeah, and that's interesting too. I mean, you look at the new coaching staff and where does he fit on style of play? I mean, Buffalo didn't really rely on the running game. It might have been talent-wise, but maybe that's not what Dable in the offense really wants to do.
And he's a weapon out of the backfield. He can run, obviously. He can catch. His pass blocking is horrendous. He doesn't. So there's pros and cons. And again, your point is spot on. How do they see him as a fit in their system? And that's ultimately what it's going to come down to.
And when you look at kind of fits, I mean, do you have any, top, free agents when you're kind of targets that you're kind of looking at on your pod and anything like that so far? Or?
You know what? Our salary cap has been so bad that the consensus with Giant fans is that any free agents that we sign are going to be depth signings. Now, I just happened to see something today that possible free agent targets. And look, I'm going to reference this, and this is out of a local paper. I happened to just see it this morning, okay? Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean these players. It means these types of players, okay? I saw Austin Blythe, offensive lineman from Kansas City. Tyrod Taylor, quarterback from Houston, okay? And Hayden Hurst, the tight end from Atlanta. So it's going to be those types of players. We're not going to make, you're not going to see Von Miller coming here. You're not going to see Allen Robinson coming here. We did that with Kenny Golladay last year. So, we don't have the money for that right now.
Well, you brought up the tight end position. What type of, it's been a real disappointment with Evan Ingram, hasn't it?
Evan Ingram's gone. He's going to sign somewhere. They've already announced that he's not coming back. He's going to get 4 years and $30 million for someone. He's a great guy. He's great in the locker room. He's a good guy off the field. Everybody says he never complained. But it's just a change of scenery is needed for both parties.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he dropped his fair share of passes. He did. Again, I just think it was a lot of pressure. The pressure with each drop, the pressure kept mounting and mounting. And, that gets to you as a person.
Well, especially in New York, I can't even imagine that.
Ooh, you don't even want to know.
Well, speaking of future on the defensive side, what about James Bradbury? Is he going to be part of the future, or are they going to trade him, or what are
Highly
thoughts around
unlikely.
him? Okay.
Highly unlikely. He's matter of fact, I was talking to my brother today, and we're both surprised that he's not already been traded. Now, does that mean that teams are holding up the Giants because they all know that they got to get rid of him? Possible. I think it's unlikely, but possible. Might Joe Shea just be trying to hold out for the, is Shane holding out for the best deal he could possibly get? Probably. He counts $13.4 million right now. That's his salary for this year. We don't have room for that. He was good 2 years ago. He dropped off a little bit last year. Still a good player. He's still young. Maybe you get possibly a third or fourth rounder in return for him. Again, we need to cut salary. We need to add picks. Highly unlikely. Look, if he gets traded, it's about $13.4 million against, but it frees it up, okay? Because most likely a team will absorb his salary for the year in a trade. And if they cut him, he counts about $21.8 million against the cap if they cut him. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, so there's definitely a desire for the Giants to trade him rather than cut him. There were reports last week that they were in really deep talks with Baltimore, and you could see that as a fit easily. Mm-hmm. Anybody watching your show could see that as a good fit. Mm-hmm. And I think that'll happen. I don't know if it's there, but I ultimately think he gets traded, and I would not be surprised if it happens possibly this week, maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, and you talked about draft and getting picks, and what do you see kind of the most glaring needs draft-wise, and maybe some like position targets for the Giants?
So I'm going to answer that in a couple ways for you quickly, okay? First of all, let's go over the Giants draft picks. Mm-hmm. So in the first round, they picked number 5, number 7. Second round, they picked number 36. Third round, they got 2 picks, 67 and 81. Fourth round, you're at 108. And then the fifth round, they got 2 more picks again, 145, 170, and then the 6th is 181. So they've got some picks here. Positional needs, offensive line. Mm-hmm. Any non-Giant fan can tell you that. Edge, they need to pressure the quarterback. And tight end, we released Kyle Rudolph. We released Caden Smith. Ingram's not coming back. So unless they got something up their sleeve, a tight end's probably going to be coming in the draft. And even if they do have a trade or a signing, there's still going to be a tight end coming in the draft. So those are pretty much your biggest needs right now.
When you think of the Giants in the draft, their top couple picks, is there any pick that they would make that would just be like Giants fans would just be in an uproar about? Like if maybe they went with a quarterback?
Oh God. Look, there's people out there that are all over Malik Willis. You got to bring in Malik Willis. He's great. He's going to be great. I don't see them, and there are a lot of people want that in the first round. Now, Malik Willis is a great kid. Mm-hmm. Okay, he's intelligent. He's a great athlete. Could he help? Absolutely. But does he make sense as a first-round pick this year? No. I am in the school. At least one of those 2 first-rounders needs to be an offensive lineman. I would love Evan Neal. I would love Aquanu. I doubt Evan Neal is going to be there. We just did a show last week with somebody that writes for Alabama, and we got some real great insight on Evan Neal. He leans a little bit. Can he be coached up? Absolutely. Now with Jacksonville, so it's a little interesting. Mm-hmm. Jacksonville just franchise tagged their offensive tackle. So more than likely now, they may not go offensive tackle. So if they don't, so there's 2, 3, 4, 5. there's a chance that one of those two tackles falls to us. I also love Linderbaum out of the center from Iowa. Love him.
That's my guy. Yeah.
Absolutely love him. Do I think he can help? Yeah. Do I think any one of those guys you could put on the line of scrimmage and they could be there 5, 7, 10 years and you could build around them? That's what this year is going to be about. Rebuilding the foundation. Yes. There's talk about if the two tackles are gone, people maybe want to see them pick Hamilton from Notre Dame. I don't love it. All right. Do I see how he can fit in Wink Martindale's defense? Yes. I would rather, if they're going to go in that direction, I think the pick is going to be the cornerback out of Cincinnati. I think the cornerback is a more premium position than safety, and especially in Martindale's defense. So if they're going to pick defense, and let's say Hutchinson and Thibs are both picked, I would not be surprised if the cornerback from Cincinnati is the pick, and then maybe they look to trade the other pick, trade back into the first round, add a couple more picks, and then take your offensive lineman there. They could take Penning out of Northern Iowa. He's getting a lot of talk. You get the kid out of Boston College. You get the kid out of Kentucky. All right, so you got Linderbaum. So a lot of possibilities and options. Too many right now to say which way they're going to go.
Yeah, and when you look at that, I mean, there's really no way the Giants can screw this draft up, right?
You know what? I want to say no, but given what we've just come out of with Dave Gettleman,
Right.
I almost do the sign of the cross there, right before the draft. So I'd like to believe no. I feel much more confident with this group that they're not going to.
And when you look at, I mean, we talked about not expecting a ton out of this season. When you look at the expectations for 2022, when it comes to the end, and what are you looking for throughout the season to say, okay, this has been a successful year, a step in the right direction?
I look for cohesion on the offensive line. I look, in a perfect world, Daniel Jones shows that he can be the guy. Okay, in a perfect world. And if he's not, and they draft a quarterback, and I like Daniel Jones. I don't lie. I like Daniel Jones, and if he doesn't work out, then I'll be the first one to say, okay, we got to retool the position next year. I want to see cohesion on the offensive line. I want to see the foundation of this team rebuilt. I want to see an offense that can move the ball consistently. I want to see a defense that's aggressive, that blitzes. They signed Adoree Jackson last year so he could blitz. They never blitzed him. So I just want to see progress, and I want to see signs that this unit, maybe not this roster per se, but the systems, the people that they brought in to install these systems, that these systems can work. And that with a couple tweaks here and there, maybe 2-3 years down the road, we're talking playoff football.
That must have been horrible to watch at the end of the season when it was a third down and they were doing a QB sneak inside the 10, just.
I don't want to say I had no words. I had no voice for a couple days afterwards. I had plenty of words, none of which I'm really going to say on the show. It was bad. And you know what? The meltdown with Joe Judge and I think his final straw was the press conference after the Chicago game. When he was just pretty much pleading for his job. It got worse as the season went on. Absolutely. And I don't want to hear about injuries. Look, all teams have injuries. We all do. We didn't have a roster, though, that can plug and play to overcome any of those injuries.
Absolutely. Well, I've got a little bit of a game here. I've got some reaction statements from you and then some overreaction statements. So I'm going to go ahead and put them up, and I'm going to get your reaction to some of these statements. Are you ready?
Go.
All right. We'll start with this one here. What is your reaction to Odell Beckham Jr. winning the Super Bowl with the Rams?
Good for him. You know what? Odell Beckham, here's one thing I will say. His time it wasn't right for him in New York. He wasn't ready for it. I don't think he was mature enough for it. But one thing I'll say about Odell Beckham, his teammates loved him. And one thing I've always admired about Odell Beckham was he is great with kids. He always stops to sign autographs for kids, give them his equipment, pose for pictures with kids. I respect that. You know what? He matured. He looked at himself, he fixed himself, and he matured. I respect that. Good for him.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Had he not got injured, he probably would have been the MVP of the Super Bowl.
He was on his way. He was having a great game.
He was.
They couldn't stop him.
Well, here's another reaction here, and this might be a little fun one here. What is your reaction to the free medium soft drink for fan appreciation promo debacle this year?
Yes. Look at me laughing. Do I need to really say anything? It was a joke. I mean, a free medium soda. I had a whole refrigerator full of iced tea, soda, beer. Swing and a miss. I'll just leave it at that. So I understand they wanted to do something for the fans. They could have went in many different ways. How about free parking?
Free parking would have been huge, I'm sure.
Right? So that was a swing and a miss. It was a disaster. And I heard the soda was flat to boot.
And when you look at it, I mean, the product on the field, I mean, we're fans just, are they going to start not coming to the games on a regular basis if the product isn't good? Or, I mean, are there still going to be loyal Giant fans that come no matter what?
You know what? Look, people were really unhappy at the end of last season, okay? And you started to see a lot of people out there saying, I'm not going to the last game. And the only weapon that fans have against management and ownership is by ownership and management to show up for a game and they see an empty stadium. Mm-hmm. The problem is those tickets are already paid for. All right, so you say, all right, well, don't renew your season tickets. But for every one person that does it, there's 100 waiting to get the ticket. So the only way to get your point across is to fly another plane over the stadium with a banner that says this, it's got to change. And don't go.
And it's funny because, even at Texans games, they were having, someone come with a sign every game that said sell the team, and that still didn't deter the owners.
Right. So, I mean, I get it. It's the only form of protest we have. But I will say this. It looks like John Mara has finally heard the fans and gotten the message because he made the right hire. And from what I understand, he is letting Joe Schoen make decisions, and he's trusting his word. Where Mara has kind of taken that step back. And now the question is, well, he's a co-owner with Steve Tisch. Okay, so now there's rumors that Steve Tisch came in and said, because I think Mara wanted to bring back Joe Judge. And Tisch said, no, it's got to change. This isn't working. We got to stop it. So hopefully Mara learned his lesson. He trusts Schoen. Supposedly they all love him in there. They trust him. He got great reviews from Buffalo ownership. And it seems that they're all in on him. So hopefully there's a big change coming with the Giants.
Well, here's another reaction statement. So see if it's actually working. Sharing a stadium with the Jets. What are your reactions to that?
I think they did a terrible job with the stadium. It looks like a big air conditioning unit. And there's, back in the day when they had the old Giant Stadium, Andy, teams hated coming in there. You had the swirling winds and, okay, did they open the doors or who knows? Okay. I don't know. But that stadium had an attitude about it. And the fans fed into that and were part of that. There's just no atmosphere at the stadium. Now, will winning change all that? Well, we sure as hell hope so. We haven't had a playoff game there. So who knows? I don't like the stadium. I think they could have did a lot better. personally, I'd like to see grass instead of turf.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I know George Kittle, also my guy from Iowa, is really pushing on, and that'll be interesting to see where that goes. I mean, there really is no reason why these NFL teams can't do that. I mean, they can do it in Green Bay, they can do it anywhere.
Anywhere, right. So I don't know if they're going to. I would love to see every NFL stadium go to natural grass. I just there's something so much more old school football when you see games on grass as opposed to turf.
Well, and if it's less injuries and you're listening to players, I think that's better all around for the product anyway.
Yeah. But look, you put grass in that stadium, you get a winning team in that stadium, and I think all this talk about it being a terrible stadium and a dead atmosphere kind of goes away.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of having a winning team in that building, here's an overreaction statement. Jets have a better future outlook and will make the Super Bowl before the Giants.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
Is this the fan in you or the analyst in you?
Both.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I think weren't the Jets 4-13 last year also?
Yeah, and I think what it looks the biggest thing is you question mark. Are you in on their quarterback? And personally, I am not. As maybe an impartial observer, I was not even in on Zach Wilson coming in the draft. So it's interesting. The Jets obviously have to be. What are your thoughts on maybe him? Is he better than Daniel Jones? Or
look, right now, the Jets are in a better position to be successful quicker because they have more money to play with in free agency. So they can go after some big name free agents right now and add some free agents. Okay, I get that. Again, I think Joe Douglas is a very good GM. I think he's very intelligent. I think he's a very good I think he's very good at he's a very good talent evaluator with players. I do. So I think in the short term, you may see success out of the Jets first. Okay. Long term, I'm a Giant fan. I bleed Giant blue. If the Giants have a good draft, you know what? I will take a good draft over a couple splashy free agent signings any day of the week for long-term success.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. That's fair.
And your point about Zach Wilson. So I live here in Florida. So I went to the Boca Bowl 2 years when BYU played Central Florida, and he blew me away. He was great, deadly accurate, threw a great deep ball, commanded the offense. It was his rookie year, okay? I'd like to see a little bit of a taller quarterback, hence Daniel Jones. But too early to give Zach Wilson a thumbs up or a thumbs down. He didn't have a good year, obviously. Did he fall short of expectations? Probably. But I'm not going to say, do I think he's the guy or not yet. Too early.
Yeah, I mean, he's got some good pieces around him, with Michael Carter and, receiver wise. But, overall, it'll be interesting to see kind of his development. Well, I did have another overreaction statement, and we've talked about this already. But here we go. Daniel Jones will not be the week 1 starter.
Disagree.
Are they kind of locked into him, at least for the first part of the season, do you think?
I'm taking them for their word. Beside that, so now Joe Shane just came out, was it last week or 2 weeks ago, and said, well, Daniel Jones is our starting quarterback for now. But I echo what John Mara said. We have failed this boy, and we are going to give him everything he needs to be successful. Now, yes, I just said earlier that John Mara is also listening to Joe Shane. I think, though, in my gut, Daniel Jones will be the week 1 starter. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Unless
interesting.
there's a trade to be made, there's some moves, and he gets traded. Okay, that changes everything.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, based on what I've heard, he's going to be the starter.
So as a Bears fan, we kind of went through this last year with the whole Andy Dalton is the starter thing. And we all saw how that worked out. But, if a new coaching staff is coming in and, a new leadership, they're saying they're going to give him a shot, they provide, and, short of even, bringing Mitchell Trubisky in to push Daniel Jones, you pretty much have to have him the week 1 starter if you want to see if he's the guy, right?
How do you not? How do you say? How can you make a determining factor on him when he's not? I think they're going to give him a shot to see if he could be the guy that could lead this rebuild. I do, in my heart, I do, and I would be surprised if that's not true.
And when you look at the rebuild, as a fan, it's one thing, but as an analyst, kind of looking at all the pieces and stuff, how many pieces is this team away from playoffs and then Super Bowl?
That's a tough question. Well, there's no tight end, so you got to get a tight end. There's one. Really, aside from Andrew Thomas on the offensive line, there is nobody really that I could say, all right, well, we've got these 2 or 3 guys. So let's say maybe 2 to 3 offensive linemen. All right, Kenny Golladay is a receiver. You got Kadarius Toney, who's got a world of talent, but couldn't stay on the field last year. So, and that was part of the problem too. They didn't know how to utilize him last year. More confidence that these guys know how to utilize him. So you got receivers. So running, I'm not going to put a running back in there because right now we've got Saquon Barkley in those. So let's say at least 2 offensive linemen, 2 to 3, tight end. Give me an edge and maybe a linebacker or a cornerback. So maybe 5 pieces. I'm telling you, they could do this 2 to 3 years.
And when you're looking at it, obviously, you're invested in this team and it's frustrating, I'm sure, to see losses and everything like that. But are you able to kind of take a step back and, just kind of go into a Sunday, and realize, okay, we may not win. I'm still going to enjoy this, even though knowing they're not going to win.
Andy, last year, I have to be very honest to say that Sundays came and I was not excited to watch the Giants. Especially as the year went on. Opening day, everybody's 0-0. My brother and I get together every year in the preseason. We go through the schedule, we predict the record. And every year we would say 10-6, except last year we said 10-7. But my point is, last year was really the first year where it was just like, why? Why are we even watching this team?
So yeah, I guess that's my question. And I've lived this with being a Bears fan. Would it be better for this team to just be horrible, right? Horrible in order to get a higher draft back? Then that you're going to get maybe one of the top quarterbacks next year, and that that's going to be solved, that quarterback position, or just to be average. Because as a Bears fan, that was our problem for so many years. It's just being good enough, until last year. Obviously, we traded with the Giants, and ended up, with my guy Fields, and yeah, well, yeah, and it'll be interesting to see who the Giants pick in the draft as well. But as a Bears fan, that was worth it because that is an important piece. So would it be worth it then for you as a fan to just trudge through the season? Maybe it's a 2-3 win season, then that you're going to be up there, or is that just too hard to think about?
Well, all right. So I said before that I don't expect wins this year. So let's say they go 4-13. All right, let's spitball here. If they go 4-13 again, but you see signs, they're competitive. They don't look dead. They move the ball. And again, they're competitive. Where you see that, with a tweak here or there, I'll take that. Last year, there was just nothing. The team was dead. They were just going through them. It was a much different feeling. And so you give me 4-13, but competitive. And let's say, all right, look, you know what? Daniel Jones, he's not the guy. 4-13, we got a high draft pick.
Mm-hmm.
Now we can move. Maybe we can go after Bryce Young or whoever the hot quarterback is going to be coming out next year. Who knows what's going to happen over the course of the season. So, again, give me a competitive team where I at least don't mind watching them, and I'll suffer through the losses next year.
Yeah, I would see that's similar to me as a Bears fan. I probably, there are only a couple games I really got up for. Always get up for the Packer games. Just especially when they almost, they had a really good half, I guess, and then everything turned around. But I mean, when you look at the NFL, it's interesting. You talk about these owners, and the NFL, I think, has fans regardless of what owners do. Right? I mean, the NFL is just, it's, with fantasy football and with everything, regardless, they've got us no matter what.
You're right. Gambling now, all the betting sites, and so it's gotten crazy, but it's the best sport in the world. And we're all so passionate about it. But, look, Andy, you're a Bears fan. I'm a Giants fan. Every Sunday morning you wake up, you want to win.
So, yeah, my thing, yes, I want the Bears to do well, right? And
Right.
maybe I'm different because I don't live in Chicago, right? I actually
Right.
live in Wisconsin here in the enemy territory. Certain games that kind of get my juices up, right? But when I went into 2021, I didn't have delusions of grandeur. I didn't think the Bears were going to do well. I
Right.
thought maybe it was a 4-win team, and everyone's like, the fan, oh yeah, we're going to win this. No, you need to be realistic. And I am okay with being a realist as opposed to being all sold on and having the rose colored glasses on.
Yeah.
I want to see kind of that type of growth. And when you look at the coaching staff, I mean, I'm sure with the Giants, you're going to be able to tell, maybe even, training camp or even week 1, is this an NFL offense just from the coaching staff and just from some of the schemes? Because when you look at the Bears, I mean, you could tell that Matt Nagy, I mean, he was just, not the guy, you just tell, I mean, he didn't know how to scheme for the strengths of his players. And when like normal podcasters, when we can see that, it blows my mind that these people were paid so much money to do this. They can't see that.
Right. And one thing I've been saying all along is in the New York market, this is the best product they could put on the field. Shame on them. This goes back to, I don't know if you remember in the 70s, the Giants were horrible. And I was a little kid and I hated them then. I mean, I loved them, but they gave me agita then. So, but I got to ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
So you're in Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So University of Wisconsin, tight end. I want him as a Giant. Give me some dirt.
Ferguson. Oh yeah. He's tough. He's going to be good. It's interesting because being an Iowa fan, I went to that Iowa game and he just obviously went to the running game quite a bit, but he's going to be tough. I mean, I'd have to look more of his tape, but that would be a good pickup. And that's someone you could get later on the draft. He's I don't know, maybe third round, or maybe even 5th round. Yeah, that would be. And when you look at Wisconsin, he's going to be tough. I'd have to look at his blocking, but when you look at, against Iowa, their young running back just kind of tore Iowa up. Which, I mean, I'd have to specifically look at the tape, but that would lend to believe that, he was a big part of the blocking scheme, from that game. So that would be a great pickup, for the Giants. And that would be a piece that you wouldn't really have to spend high draft capital on, I wouldn't think.
Right. I think, and I agree with you. I think middle rounds, he's going to be there. 3rd, 4th round, maybe. I think he's going to be there. Look, he's a big kid.
Mm-hmm.
big target, soft hands, but supposedly he can block as well. Yeah, I've had my eye on him. I had my eye on him during the season.
Yeah,
So
that would be a
I'd
great
be
pick.
curious.
Yeah. And when you look at the Giants, I mean, there are a lot of pieces, but you always have hope. I mean, whether you're a fan, you follow the team, and as a Bears fan, I do have hope. And it's funny because we did our NFC North podcast last week, and the Packer fans were like, I don't know if Justin Fields is a guy, and as a fan, my fan side says he is the guy because I want him to be. And I'm sure you're kind of that way with Daniel Jones too. I mean, you want him to be because you want that answer on the team already, so you don't have to spend extra draft capital or whatever to fill that hole.
Right. And yeah, look, we're in a similar position there. I think Justin Fields is going to be a good quarterback for you. Your offensive line was almost as bad as ours last year. So I get that whole thing. He's got a strong arm. But look, how much better does it make things if both of our quarterbacks step forward this year and prove that, you know what, hey, we got our quarterbacks. So I completely understand and agree with your thought there. I most important position on the field.
Well, and I'd say, another important, I mean, we talked about tight ends, but another important position for both the teams and a quarterback development is the receivers. And the Giants, couldn't keep anybody on the field. I know that from a dynasty perspective. I had Sterling Shepard on many of my teams, and he just couldn't keep him on the field.
Yeah, and look, when they were negotiating with Kenny Golladay last offseason, again, he reminded me of Plaxico Burress, and you remember the success we had with him. I'm disappointed. Number one, he couldn't stay healthy, and that was a concern. He missed a lot of time with Detroit the season before. Okay. What I didn't like, what I was a little put off by was, number one, I never saw him fight for any balls that were thrown his way. And at least try. And there was some, I remember, I think it was the Tampa game or Washington. I think it was Tampa. They threw a screen to Kadarius Toney, and Golladay pretty much let the guy, his defender run right by him and blow up the play. I mean, try. He's $72 million. Earn it. So, I'm going to give him a second. Look, would I be upset if he wasn't on the roster this year for some crazy reason? Absolutely not. But he is, and I'm going to support him.
Did they re-sign Slayton? Did I see that?
I haven't seen where they re-signed him yet. They redid Shepard's contract.
That's what it was. That's what I saw.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
They just redid Shepard. And one thing that we haven't spoken about, but another key restructure they just did was Blake Martinez.
Former Packer, yeah.
Love him, and I'm so glad he's back. They missed him more than anybody says last year.
That's a great point. I mean, when he left Packers, obviously he was a big part of them. I know I was a Bears fan as well. So yeah, that is a great point. I mean, defensively, you definitely need that. His presence.
And he called the plays. I mean, he called the defense, and that was a big loss. I'm so happy he's back.
So defensively, are they going to still run the same kind of 3-4, or are they going to be changing it up?
I think if I'm correct, Wink Martindale likes to run a 3-4, but he also likes to get aggressive with his linebackers and D-backs. So what I think is you might see that same base defense, but I think you're going to see a lot of twists to it as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if they switch out into a 4-3 for certain plays as well. And look, I'm probably not saying anything that anybody doesn't already know or think, but I think the biggest difference you're going to see from Wink Martindale is a very aggressive style defense. I think you're going to see more blitzing, more scheming, maybe more disguising coverages, disguising blitz packages. And the Giants just didn't seem to do that much last year. And, I want to go back to something that we said, when we were talking about expectations for the Giants and would I be happy with the losing season. Part of what was so bad about last year was in 2020, if you remember, the Giants were competitive. Last week of the season, they were playing for a playoff spot, had a losing record, but they were competitive. So everybody coming off of that 2020 season, we're like, you know what? We're taking the next step forward. And they took the step back. So when you figure that into just how bad it was, last year was just childbirth seemed like a good option.
Oh, that's never good to put that up against that. But yeah, I mean, I when I went to the into the Bears Giants game, I thought maybe it'll be competitive, maybe the Bears will lose. But wow, I mean, just what happened? It was just I was a little surprised.
The Giants never got off the bus.
Yeah,
it was just look, Joe Judge was in over his head.
Mm-hmm.
This was too big for him. I don't think he's ready yet to be a head coach. He's back in New England now. He's going to work with the offense and okay, let him keep getting groomed. Going to take time to rebuild his image and his resume, but he wasn't ready for this. Again, just these coaches, this new coaching staff, this new front office, it just feels different. It feels like they are building for success again. And that's the difference here.
And as a fan, that's really what you need. I mean, you want to at least have some hope that it's going in the right direction. And obviously it's going to be an exciting kind of, free agency draft. I always love that part of it. This has been fantastic. I definitely appreciate your time. And where can everyone find you again?
So the Giants Zone podcast, they can find us on Twitter at Giants_Zone 2022. I apologize. We have the link to our YouTube channel is on there, so people can watch our show if they want. So our show, what we do is it's myself and two other co-hosts, and what we also do is we invite one of our followers to just join us on the show. So we make the show more about our followers, because one thing we've learned is that our followers, they have opinions and they like to voice them. So now we've given them a platform to do so. We're trying to build a community here. And look, we just started in February. We're growing. We're not discouraged by anything. We're excited. We're building a following. We're getting great feedback. So, and people can also download our podcast on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, all the main download streaming as well.
And do you have a specific kind of night that you do your podcasts?
So we usually tape on it or record it on Tuesday evenings, and then it's posted on Wednesday mornings.
Perfect. Definitely going to have to watch out for that.
Thank you for letting me promote that a little bit. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to kind of hearing more from you. And it's going to be, fun regardless of win-loss, records this year for both of our teams, I think.
It is. It's just this is year of growth, rebuild and grow. So really enjoyed my time with you tonight, Andy. Love to work with you again in the future. Love to have you on our show as well. Maybe during the off season, or maybe I think when the next time they play, we could work something. But let's definitely keep in touch and let's keep working together. And really appreciate this. This was great tonight.
Absolutely. Well, once again, this has been NFL Outdated Cover 2 series on the New York Giants. And thanks again, Carl from Giants Zone Podcast.
Thank you so much, Andy. Appreciate it.